Okay, our next session is going to be taken by Toby Odunowo, and he'll be talking about boosting business results with people analytics. We all understand that one of the mindset shifts that we're trying to achieve with this session is to let us know that HR is not just about the people, but more about the business. Starting with Bolaji's session and going on to Amaka's session that's telling us about finance being the language of the business. Now, Toby will be looking at what are those things we need to look at in measuring whether we are making movement or just progressing. About Toby, Toby is a learning and leadership consultant with over 15 years of experience. And Toby has worked across different strategic HR positions in Africa, Asia, and North America. He has contributed to technology transformation projects with high growth corporations such as Suncor Energy, Canada's largest integrated energy company, Total E&P, the world's largest energy major, and intergovernmental organizations such as the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. His winning formula is to be a lifelong learner. He's a certified Scrum product owner and has delivered many agile HR projects. He also has a lean yellow belt and lean green belt, which he gained after delivering several impactful process improvement projects. Toby has a master's degree in management learning and leadership from the University of Lancaster, United Kingdom. He is also a chartered member of the CIPD UK. Toby is a convener of Tribe Analytics, a global community of HR professionals who are enthusiastic about people analytics. He is an instructor on Udemy, currently offering 2 highly rated courses, Strategic HR in Modern Times and Acing Your Virtual Interview, both courses which gained over 500 students in the first month of launch. He's a career coach, offering guidance and leadership to HR professionals in different stages of their career journey. Toby, it's an honor to have you on this session, and you have the floor now. You can please share your screen.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and speak to this group. So it's good morning from my part of Canada, and I think it's actually more like good evening for you guys. So I'm going to be speaking about boosting business results with people analytics. How do you provide value to the business using data analytics? So first thing I want to say is, I have a quick question, but we're not going to answer it now. And I don't know if you ever thought about it. Will the world population reduce in 2020 due to the coronavirus pandemic? And we know that there's been a lot of death around the world due to this current situation. So let's talk about people analytics. So HR analytics is defined as the systematic identification and quantification of the people drivers of business outcomes. So I just will pick on some keywords there. It's systematic, meaning that there's a well thought out approach to it. It focuses on the people drivers of business outcomes. So every driver of business outcome that has to do with people, and you will agree with me that there's a lot of drivers of business outcomes that got to do with people. Now, just kind of take us on a journey on where the world has been, the world of work has been, and where we are today. So we've gone through the period where it was all around the operational HR, and that was triggered a lot around because of the Industrial Revolution. If you remember, many years ago, it was all around industries, and for those that were born like 30, 40 years ago, you would remember that if you have a model of a car, I mean, if your parents had a 504 GL, it takes up to 3, 4, 5 years before a new model comes out. But now you see that happening every year. So at the time, what HR was providing was helping with operational efficiency in terms of the business value chain that you would see in organizations that had to do more of industrial work. So how do we hire people? There was very little about having people use their own initiative. It was a lot around people, I mean, doing what they are told to do. Then we moved on to strategic HR. which I think one of the speakers talked about. Dave Ulrich was one of those people that championed it, and late 90s came up with its business partner model. And this was when, you know, the whole focus was now getting on HR knowing about the business, which is what we've been talking about today, and we're still in this phase where we need to know about the business. However, there's been another progress in recent times where we now have data-driven HR. Now, and I want to say that data is not just unique to HR. I mean, around the world, data is changing things because of the advancement in technology, because of how much data we have today, because of how many things, I mean, we can actually record and actually make insight out of. So the world is getting to becoming more data driven, and as custodians of the big data that we have so much of data about our employees. We know when we hired them, we know when they got a suspension, we know, you know, what time they even come into the office every day, we know what their performance is, we know where they go and leave. We have all this information, and we have an opportunity to make sense, to generate insights from all of this. So I'll come back to my question, and this isn't a question I want to answer, but this is me just telling you that it starts with a question, and there are so many business leaders today that have questions. And there are two ways we could answer this question. It could be opinion-based, or it could be data-driven insight. It could be a data-driven insight. So opinion-based is, if I ask this question now, we're going to answer, we'll say, oh yes, I guess, I mean, the world population might drop. Some people might say, well, the birth rate is high enough not to make the world population drop. But as much as we continue, as long as we continue to have this conversation just based on our opinions, we are never going to get the right answer. Where we'll get the right answer is if we take the data we have today and we look at that data and we see the story that the data tells us. And that's what actually gives us the best answer. So I'll go to talk quickly about the 4 types of data analytics and how this also will kind of relate to us as HR people. So the very bottom part is the descriptive analytics, and this is the very basic of data analytics, which helps us to look from hindsight. So this is probably what most organizations do today, are reporting how many staff we have, what trainings have they gone for, and things like that. It's more from hindsight. This is what has happened, and this includes, you know, our performance history of employees, demographic reports, and all of those things. And many HR people are comfortable with this because so far, quite a number of us know how to use Excel and do a bit of data analytics. Now, there's another part that's got to do with diagnostic analytics. And what diagnostic analytics helps us to answer is what is happening. Sorry, why is it happening? So what is happening is descriptive. Why is it happening is diagnostic analytics. And why is it happening takes it a step further. I'm going to explain this in a way that we can all understand. By saying, yeah, we know that our employees had this kind of performance the past 5 years, but why did we see a drop in performance in this certain year? So we're drilling down, we're isolating the root cause, we're trying to discover the causation from a correlation. So correlation, I mean, just like an English word we describe it, is a relationship between an occurrence and another occurrence. But it's not all the time that this relationship means that one occurrence caused the other occurrence. Now, the next step is we get into the predictive analytics. And this is us being able to answer the question, what is likely to happen? And this now gets into the machine learning algorithms, because what scientists and technology people have done is to look at the human brain, understand how we function, and build tools that can make us function that same way. So I'll give a very good example. A lot of us that have kids, your 2-year-old gets very close to your burner, your stove or something, and you say, please don't touch that, that is hot. Kids are very inquisitive. So the guy touches it, and then he gets the finger burnt. And when the finger is burnt, that feeling on the finger, the nerves in the body sends something to the brain and it records it. The next time that child gets there, the child can predict that if I touch this, it's going to burn me. So it stays back. So it's learning from the algorithms that has been recorded in the brain. And that's what predictive analytics does as well. Prescriptive analytics is based on what we can predict. Now, if we need to make a decision, what do I need to do? And that's what this talks about as well. So if you take, back to that story I talked about a child that then hesitates to touch the stove because he has, the algorithms in his brain that this will burn me, that child is making a decision from his human intelligence, and that's what we call intelligence. Now let's look at that with some application that we're all familiar with. And for those living in Lagos, I'm sure that you always like to use the Google Maps because when I lived in Lagos, this was a savior for me anytime I'm trying to move, especially from the island to the mainland. Now, Google Maps starts with the very descriptive analytics, and that's you being able to see the map. So it tells you, these are the roads, these are the names of the roads, and it shows you how it all connects. It's static, it's existing, it's showing us what is happening. But beyond that, Google Maps can also do a little bit of why is it happening for you. And then that's where you now start to see the feature that Google Maps introduced for you to know what traffic is. And I don't know if I can ask this, well, I can't get answers, but if you have ever wondered how Google Maps is able to tell where there is traffic and where there's no traffic, the way Google Maps is able to do it is the location service you got on your phone. So they're able to tell how many people are moving on those parts of the road that they have already mapped from the descriptive analytics. And they're able to, based on the number of people and the speed of movement, tell us, oh, this part of the road, there's traffic. That other part of the road, there's not so much traffic, it's light. And if you get to this part, there's no traffic at all. Now, let's take that a step further to predictive analytics. There are algorithms that have been built in Google Maps that helps Google Maps to be able to tell you as a user of Google Maps how long it's going to take you to get to your destination. And that is putting a lot of things together. It's looking at the map you have, the distance, which is what is happening, is looking at where there's traffic and where there's no traffic, which is diagnostic, and is able to calculate based on what has happened in the past, based on the speed at which people move on that road, if there's a speed limit or the average speed that people usually use when they're moving on that road, and combine all this information to tell you how long it's going to take you to get to your destination. Now, the last part is prescriptive. One thing Google Maps also helps you to do is to make decisions based on all these insights. So if it's going to take me 15 minutes to get to my destination using this route on a normal day, and because of traffic, it's telling me it's going to take 35 minutes. Google Maps can actually recommend a longer route that doesn't have traffic that will take you 20 minutes. So you can see how with analytics, we can move from hindsight, which is what a lot of us do, to insight, where we can tell organization, why is this happening? Why are people leaving the organization? And then to foresight, being able to tell this is how far, this is how many people we're expecting to leave the organization if things continue this way within the next 5 years. And prescriptive analytics, which talks about what should we do as an organization. I'll just quickly talk about some of the tools that you might or might not be familiar with. So for descriptive analytics, very famous tool, Excel. And many times we use Excel to do our charts and our graphs and imports to PowerPoint to do presentations. SQL is a database, and many times we also kind of get out what information we currently have from SQL databases, which then gives us a descriptive analytics of answering the question of what is happening now. Power BI is a more recent tool. I recommend if you've never come across it, please go and learn how to use it. It's really transforming businesses, and it will transform your career as an HR person. Tableau is a similar tool as well. But these are visualization tools that helps you to tell stories from a very interactive way. Now, at the diagnostic analytics, Excel actually also goes further to help you find out what is happening with a bit of statistics coming into it. And I don't want to get technical because not all of us are really technical in this field, but getting into like data science, you find that there's a lot of statistics in it, and Excel also has some of those features, and Power BI as well as Tableau. And these are just some of the tools. Getting to predictive analytics, you will have like tools, machine learning tools like SAP, Microsoft Azure, SAS, and they all have features that have been built in that help you do these things very seamlessly. And for prescriptive analytics, is a lot around artificial intelligence. It's a lot around decision making from machine learning, and then understanding what has happened in the past and what decisions were taken in the past. Artificial intelligence is able to recommend the decision that we could take, and Google AI and IBM Watson are tools you can look at. So what does this mean for us as HR practitioners? The biggest question I've heard is, oh, you're talking about people analytics, and I'm an HR professional, I don't like numbers, I've never tried to use any of these tools you've talked about. What is the opportunity for me? Now, I say that it's moving right in the middle. I don't really recommend that people should become data scientists, because on the right you have people that are data scientists that's actually their profession. They can build predictive models. They understand big data. They understand machine learning. And many times these are technical people that don't have HR experience. So we bring them into the HR field, but we are coming from an advantage point of understanding the business from a people point of view. And what I will say is we need to have ample understanding of how data science works as HR professionals, so that we can guide our data scientists into, what they need to help us get out to provide value to the business. So a data scientist that can build a predictive model will need an HR person to guide them into what kind of predictive model do we need? What are the things we're trying to measure? What are the questions we are getting from the business that we need to answer? And how can data help us to answer those questions? How can data help us to take an action that's, we are taking because we have insight about what could happen in the future. Now, you know how to find the answer. So it's a lot around us using the data we have to generate insights. And with that, we're able to advise the business. And I'll end with this quote from Edwards Deming, who says, in God we trust, all others must bring data. I think part of the scripture says that the secret things of God belong to God, but those things he reveals, belong to us and our children. But if God does not reveal it, you better come with me with data. Thank you. I hope it was an insightful session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Toby. That was a useful session. I particularly love the way you use Google Maps, which is a tool that we all use to be able to describe the different levels of of using data in making decisions. So we will take one question from this, and the question, just one of the questions, and the question is, how best do we introduce data-driven HR function within our organizations? Should I repeat that?
So yeah, I got that. Sorry, I was just trying to unmute myself. I always tell people you need to start small. And organizations, I think, like Balaji said, are at different stages. And there's no one size fits all. Some organizations are at the stage where they have all the tools and you can just learn how to use them and utilize them. An organization that has all the employee data on paper, you actually wouldn't do the same thing like people that have HR solutions. So what I'll advise is first understand where you are as an organization And I mentioned I've had people who will tell me, Toby, you know what, all the data we have is on paper, they're in files. And I say, well, how can you start to translate that into something as little as Excel? And if you can translate it to Excel, then you can now start to draw insight, can start to build descriptive analytics for your organization and telling them, oh, do you really realize that over the past 5 years, we have had a 20% increase in staff costs? That's an information that's there. But if you work in an organization that has all those tools, that have Power BI, that have all those things, first thing I'll say is you show them how it's used. And if I could speak to my experience, I worked in an organization that had all those tools, Power BI. Nobody was talking about HR analytics. But then I found that was where the future was heading. And I went and learned how to use some of the tools like Power BI, and then went out to showcase it. So it doesn't have to be on my job description. What I needed to do was to say, you know what, I need to understand that this is value add for business, and I need to take the first step. Now that does two things. You're perceived as someone who is helping to add value to the business, and you're also perceived as someone who is valuable to the business. So career-wise, you get your promotion, you get that recognition, and of course, the business also benefits from it. That's how I'll answer the question.
Okay. Thank you so much, Toby. And due to time constraints, we'll only be taking that question. Thank you for sharing your insights. Thank you for the simple way in which you've broken down this seemingly complex people analytics topic into simple and easily understood presentation. I'd like to hand over to Nonso, who will then introduce the next speaker. Hello, Nonso.